Creep Night, sure to send a chill down your spine. Welcome to Creep Night. Food can sometimes be a comforting thing, one to delight in. We use it not only to keep ourselves alive, but also to commune with others. But what if the very food that we love so much turns into a silent killer? Timmy loved food. Anything savory or sweet, he couldn't ever seem to get enough. He started filming his culinary endeavors and began blowing up. What started as an intimate following of those who saw a mealtime companion in him grew and grew with the sizes of his meals. Some warned him, pleaded for him to seek help. Others goaded him into bigger and bigger stunts out of sadism. And Timmy loved it all. Every click, every comment was proof to him that he was doing something right. What is up, my glorious mukbangers? As you can see for lunch today, I have buttered noodles, bacon burgers, fully loaded hot dogs, some kickin' chicken nuggets, habanero nachos, and the perfect side to any good meal, old-fashioned fries. Well, let's get started. Timmy said this with relish as he walked over to his chair and sat behind a plastic fold-up table piled high with greasy boxes. He smiled at the camera and began to eat his nachos, fistfuls at a time. Every time he shoved fistfuls of the jagged chips and fiery meat into his mouth, it looked like he would almost gag. He sipped some of his fluorescent green drink down with the nachos, which had nearly congealed to a slop in the time that it took him to set up his film rig. With smears of cheese around his mouth, he gave the camera a vacant smile. As you can see, with the appetizer gone, it is time for us to move on to the chicken nuggets. All 100 of them. Timmy opened the first box of the lumps of meat and coated them in a thick burgundy sauce from the accompanying pile. He took a couple, his already sloppy hands getting stained with the sticky sweet glaze, and he began to chew methodically. At a steady pace, he repeated this process until all the nuggets were intermingling with his nachos. Okay, mukbangers, with the nuggets gone, it is time to move on to the noodles. And as you can see here, we have over 30 pints of buttered noodles, and I know that you are all as excited for that as I am. Timmy grabbed a fork and a mixing bowl, which he then proceeded to dump all of his pasta into. And he once again began to eat, at this point starting to have to force himself forward a little bit. His stomach began to extend out, his insides all angles and pressure. And as full as he was feeling, he needed more views on his channel. So none of this stopped him from overeating the food that he had ordered. And once the noodles were gone, he went on to the next item on his menu. All right, mukbangers, the time has come to start with the hot dogs. As you can see, each of these hot dogs are just full of onions, cheese, chili, and jalapenos. Timmy shoved the first hot dog into his mouth, and he struggled to finish the second hot dog, having to force himself to shovel it down. His stomach began to extend even more, and as he continued to eat, his stomach began to throb in pain. After eating his 10th dog, Timmy began to sweat. Wow, alrighty, mukbangers. It is time for us to move on to our burgers, all 15 of them. Look at this cheesy goodness. You can see that all the cheeseburgers on this table have extra cheese with bacon, of course, and we gotta have our salad, lettuce, tomato, onion, and the good old pickle. And yeah, we have like at least a good 5 pounds of goodness here, at least. Timmy began to stuff his face full of the cheeseburgers. The juice from the burger ran from his mouth down his cheeks, filling his hands, and even though he began to feel very ill, he continued eating. His stomach began to grow to 10 times its normal size, and he began to sweat profusely. It was almost as if he were sweating grease, and growing with each bite, he began to dig into his fries. Excuse me. These are supreme fries, as you can all clearly see, with the nicely even layered toppings. And Timmy began to eat his fries, cheese and ketchup dripping down from his chin. And after he ate the last scrap of potatoes, his stomach let out a loud rumbling sound, followed by a huge vibrating sound. At first, he looked right up at the camera and smiled, but then his face twisted into a worried, twisted grimace of pain, and his stomach extended even further than it had before. Timmy looked like a giant ball being inflated with air. Timmy began to scream and scream as his skin began to inflate. His eyes began to bulge out of his sockets, and tears of grease streamed down his face. Before his camera shut off due to its low battery, Timmy's stomach exploded, shooting his guts and blood all over his camera lens. Now, the next time you decide to gorge yourself in front of an audience, ask yourself this: is this all for you? Or is it all for the fans in hopes of becoming famous? Thank you for listening to Creep Night.